Hi, welcome all to the lecture 2 of Caro 2016. So, in this lecture, we are going to talk about the various clauses under which the various clauses for which the auditor has to report under the Caro 2016, right? So, in the previous lecture relating to the Caro, we have understood that Caro is defined under section number 143 subsection 11, right? Under the Companies Act 2013. Now, what is the things we understood till that time was कि there are two types of Caro. Now Caro 2016 is there, Caro 2020 is there. So I have already discussed in detail with you कि Caro 2020 is not at all applicable for the financial year 1920. So Caro 2020 is applicable for the financial year 2021. So for us Caro 2016 is applicable. So let us do the revision what we have done in the part 1. So let us understand what do you mean by Caro. So tell me the full form of Caro. The Caro stands for Companies Auditors Report Order 2016. As you all know, it is ordered by central government. It is ordered by central government under section 143 subsection 11. Next thing. Okay, what is the date of applicability of the Caro 2016? The date of applicability of Caro 2016, I told you that it is 29th March 2016. And what is the first financial year when the Caro 2016 was made applicable was the 15-16 financial year. And we have also discussed in detail in our previous lecture about the applicability of Caro. So in the applicability of Caro, we have already discussed the Caro is applicable to all the companies, including which company? Including the foreign company under section 2 subsection 42. And Caro is not applicable to which companies? Banking companies, not applicable to insurance companies, not applicable to OPC, not applicable to small companies, not applicable to section 8 company, and not at all applicable to private limited companies. It is not at all applicable to private limited companies, but yes, it is applicable to private unlimited company. Ye remember karna, it is not applicable to private limited company, but it is applicable to private unlimited company. Yes sir, we have discussed it. After that, we have talked about the 4 conditions. We have talked about the 4 conditions which are required to be fulfilled by that private company to make sure that the Caro 2016 is not applicable. So what are the 4 conditions? Condition number 1, it should neither be a holding nor a subsidiary of a which company? Public company. That private company should neither be a holding nor a subsidiary of a public company. Yes sir. Second condition, the total paid up share capital, the total paid up share capital plus free reserves at any point of time during the financial year on the balance sheet date, on the last audited balance sheet date, it should not exceed 1 crores. And we have already discussed in analysis, we have also done the analysis of total paid up share capital as well as the free reserves in the previous part, right? Then its total outstanding borrowings from the banks and financial institutions in any case shall not be exceeding 1 crore, but that we have to see not on the balance sheet date, we have to see it at any point of time during the financial year. And in the 4th point, we understood that the total revenue of the organization, such private companies total revenue including the turnover from the discontinued operations at any point of time during the financial year shall not be exceeding 10 crore rupees. So that also has to be seen at any point of time, but this has to be seen on balance sheet date, right? Now, the major thing what we have to understand now, why the Caro has been introduced, that is the main point now we have to understand. So para number 3 of the Caro. So let me tell you one thing. Caro ka para number 1 talked about notification date and applicability, short title and applicability of the Caro, short title and extent of Caro. Then para number 2, we understood that applicability of Caro. Now we are doing the para number 3. So what is para number 3? Everyone concentrate now carefully. In the para number 3, as I told you that, first of all, to tell me, Caro is a separate statutory audit report. It is an annexure to your statutory audit report. It is an annexure to your statutory audit report. So when we send or issue the audit report to our statutory, to our client, so in that company, we have to attach the Caro report also under section 143 subsection 11. Everyone clear? Okay sir. So how many areas the auditor must report upon? There are total 16 areas on which the auditor has to report. How many areas the auditor has to report? 16 areas the auditor has to report. Sir, can you please tell us those 16 areas one by one, each and every area in detail we are going to understand. Are you getting the point or not? Now understand one thing. What are those 16 areas? Area number 1. clause number 1. You will call it as clause number 1. Right or no? Clause number 1 of part 3 of CARO 2016 specified under section 143 subsection 11. So first clause talks about reporting on which assets? Fixed assets. First clause talks about reporting on which assets? Fixed assets. We have to understand the reporting on fixed assets. Now, as a statutory auditor, what kind of reporting you have to do on the fixed assets? Reporting number 1. We have to check when we go to the client's place, when we go to the company of our client, we have to check whether the proper records of financial fixed assets have been maintained or not. What we have to check? The proper records of the fixed assets have been maintained or not. Sir, what kind of proper records? We have to see the quantity details, we have to see the particulars, we have to see the situation, location of the plant and machinery, all those things. So whether the proper records, proper books of accounts, proper records for the fixed assets have been maintained or not. So when we talk about the proper records, it talks about proper full particulars, quantity details and situation details of the fixed assets. Sir, what do you mean by situation? Situation means location, where they are located. Are you getting the point? So for that we need to carry out a physical inspection. Then second concern in the fixed assets, as a statutory auditor, you have to see that if fixed asset register is maintained by the organization or not. Whether the fixed asset register is maintained by the organization or not. And when we talk about the fixed asset register, we talk about the two types of assets. One are known as tangible assets and one are known as intangible assets. Sir, what we are going to check in the fixed asset register? We are going to check in the fixed asset register whether they are own fixed assets or they have been taken up by the company on lease. If there are own fixed assets, we are going to check their document of title, so that we can understand those fixed assets are, belonging to our client. But if they are intangible fixed assets, if they are lease assets, then we have to check their lease agreement papers, tenure of lease, description of lessor, description of lessee. I'm telling the practical thing what an auditor actually does when he is reporting under the CARO 2016. So what is the first clause we are doing? Fixed asset, reporting in relation to fixed asset. In the fixed asset, what is the first thing? We have to see the proper records of location, situation, particulars, quantity have been maintained by the company or not. Second thing, we are going to verify their fixed asset register. In the fixed asset register, we are going to understand how many are tangible assets and how many are intangible assets. Are they own assets or are they have been taken on lease? If they have been taken on lease, we are going to verify the lease agreement papers. Am I correct or not? Now, what is the third area in the fixed assets which you have to take care of? Is the fixed assets we have to carry out a physical inspection if possible. We have to carry out the physical inspection of fixed assets if possible. Sir, what do you mean by physical inspection? First of all, let me tell you one thing. Physical inspection of the fixed assets basically is a prime responsibility of management, not the auditor. But we have to check that are their internal control systems efficient and effective enough, and are they doing the physical verification of their fixed assets at the regular intervals or not. So what is the three things we have to see? First thing, we have to check whether the proper records of the fixed assets have been maintained or not. Second thing, we have to check the fixed asset register. Third thing, we have to check whether the prime responsibility of the management, which is known as physical verification of the fixed assets, are they conducting it or not, and that too at a regular intervals they are conducting or not. So it is a prime responsibility of the management and it is required to be carried out at which intervals? Regular intervals. Next thing we have to understand, to find out the material discrepancies if any. Sir, what do you mean by material discrepancies if any? Are they properly adjusted as per the compliance of the various accounting standards or not? Are they properly disclosed as per the compliance of the various standards or not? Are they being properly accounted as per the accounting standards or not? So if the variation between the compliance and the actually done by the company is there, that the auditor has to identify and he has to report it under clause number 1 of para 3 of CARO 2016 specified under section 143 subsection 11. Everyone clear or not? So material discrepancies means what? Those important departures, those important deviations which the auditor is able to find, whether it is a deviation can be related to accounting, deviation can be relating to disclosure, and deviation can be relating to adjustment. So we have to see the title deeds for that. We have to see the title deeds for that, and accordingly we have to check whether the accounting is properly done or not, adjustment is properly done or not, and disclosure is properly done or not. And if it is not done properly, we have to report it under clause number 1. So when we talk about the clause number 1, it is a reporting under CARO 2016. It is a reporting under CARO 2016. Under the reporting, there are 4 areas what we have to report. Point number 1, whether the books of accounts relating to fixed assets are being properly maintained or not, whether fixed asset register is available or not, where we will check how many tangible and how many intangible are they own or are they taken on lease. Third thing, we have to check whether the company is conducting the physical verification of their fixed assets at the regular interval or not. And the fourth thing, what we have to check whether there are any material discrepancies or whether there are any material differences in relation to accounting of the fixed assets, in relation to disclosure of the fixed assets, in relation to adjustment of the fixed assets as per the compliance of various accounting standards. So this is what the whole reporting of CARO for the clause number 1 in relation to fixed assets. Everyone clear or not? So any question relating to fixed assets, relating to its books of accounts, register, or any kind of area, if they will ask you in the examination, immediately it should strike to our mind that yes, the particular examiner is asking you to pinpoint the clause number 1. And remember one thing, when we are presenting the answer, always try to start your answer with as per clause number 1 of para 3 of CARO 2016 specified under section 143 subsection 11. After that, write the facts of the case, write the provision of the case, and finally write the conclusion. Everyone clear or not? And if you really want to see the presentation skills video, it is already being uploaded on YouTube, and make sure that you are going through that video. It's a video of approximately 50 minutes by which you can learn how to present the various different types of questions when it comes to the CA final auditing examination. So I hope I'm able to make you understand the clause number 1. Now let us understand the clause number 2. So clause number 1 was relating to fixed asset. Dimag mein bitha lo, clause number 1 was relating to reporting for the fixed assets. Clause number 2 talks about inventory. Clause number 2 talks about the inventory. Sir, why inventory is one of the important concern when it comes to the CARO 2016? Remember one thing, inventory is the most fraudulent area. Inventory is the most corrupted area. Inventory is that area it is the only item of our financial statements which comes twice in the financial statement. One in the trading account on the credit side as a closing inventory, and one the debit balance comes in the balance sheet under the current assets. Are you getting the point? So most of the companies play their organization, most of the company play the manipulation or overvaluation or undervaluation under the stock only, under the inventory only. That makes the inventory a highly corrupted and highly fraudulent area. So, and as a statutory auditor, the central government wants you to be, NFRA wants you to be highly efficient when you are checking out the inventory, and if you find any kind of discrepancies in the inventory also, they want you to report on that under the clause number 2 of CARO 2016. Everyone clear? So let us understand what we are going to report under the inventory. Now, under the inventory, point number 1 is same like fixed asset. In the fixed asset, what was our point number 3? Whether the company is carrying out the physical inspection of its fixed assets at the regular intervals or not. Same thing we have to say here for inventory also. The biggest manipulation, the biggest misappropriations of the inventories takes place when the physical counting is not being done properly. So we have to understand their internal control system is commensurating with the size and nature of the organization or not, or are they conducting the physical verification of their inventory at the regular intervals or not. So for that, we need to do a surprise check, or we will make sure that we'll decide one particular day where we will go over there and check their internal control system ki are they doing the physical verification at the regular intervals or not. Remember one thing, carrying out the physical inspection of fixed assets and carrying out the physical inspection or physical verification of inventory is the prime responsibility of the management, but if the auditor wants to ensure that are they doing it properly or not, we can also carry out on a surprise check basis. Am I correct or not? Without giving any prior intimation to that, you will be able to understand the first point, whether the physical verification of the inventory at regular intervals is taking place or not. Concern number 1 under the head inventory. Concern number 2, material discrepancies. What is a concern number 2? Material discrepancies. We have to check that is there any overvaluation, undervaluation, is there any adjustment relating thing, is there any accounting related problem, is there any disclosure related problem or not. So about that we have to check the inventory very carefully to understand whether there are any material discrepancies while doing the valuation, or while doing the accounting, while doing the adjustment, while doing the disclosure of inventory in their books of accounts and financial statements as well. Third thing, we have to check whether the proper books and records of the inventory are being prepared by them or not. Are you getting the point? So tell me, what are the 3 concerned areas when it comes to the clause number 2, inventory? Concern number 1, physical verification must have been carried out by the company at the regular intervals. Concern number 2, material discrepancies, if any, must have been reported by the statutory auditor. And concern number 3, proper books of accounts and returns and registers relating to inventory must have been prepared by the organization. Everyone clear? Yes, sir, we are clear. So let us understand the clause number 3. So what was our clause number 1? Abhi kya karna hai? We are discussing it in detail, and slowly you will understand one fact that by that time this topic will be over, all the 16 clauses in sequential manner will be inside you. Are you getting the point? So what is clause number 1? Fixed assets. What is clause number 2? Inventory. What is clause number 3? Now look at the clause number 3. Clause number 3 is relation to loans granted. Clause number 3 is relating to loans granted. The best way to understand is related party loans. What is the third clause? Related party loans. Now, what is the point number 1 you have to understand in that is whether the loans have been granted by the organization to its related party or not. Whether the company has granted any kind of loan to its related party or not. Sir, what do you mean by related party? Related party can be a director or a manager, or it can be a subsidiary or its holding or associate. All those relationships you have to see. So basically this particular clause is dedicated to related party loans. So what is the first concern? And remember one thing, it is not loan taken, it is loan granted. So what is the first reporting responsibility under the clause number 3 in relation to related party loan is point number 1, whether the loans granted to related party, whether the company has granted any kind of loan to the related party or not. Right or not? So point number 1 we'll understand, yes, it is granted, no, it is not granted. If it is granted, whether the company is maintaining section number 189 register of related party or not. Remember one thing, this register you will understand in your CA final section number 189, which talks about the register of related parties. Section number 189 talks about the register of contracts and arrangements in relation to related parties. So if the company has granted any related party loan, whether they have put those description, put those information, and are they maintaining the related party register as per section number 189 or not. Are you getting the point? And what is our third concern? Are the loan granted by the company to its related party were secured or unsecured? If it is secured, it is less worried for the auditor. But if it is unsecured, it is very much worried for an auditor. First of all, you are granting a loan, means outflow of the money. Second thing, to your related party that might not be at arm's length price. Third thing, it is unsecured. So it is a bit worried point for the auditor or not. So first is loan granted to related party or not. Second thing is what? Are they maintaining the register under section 189 register of related party loans or not? And third one is what? Loans granted were either secured or unsecured. Either the loan granted were secured or unsecured. And point number 4, highly important, what were the terms and conditions of such loans granted? Were the terms and conditions of the such loan granted were regular or not? What do you mean by regularity in the terms and conditions? Like a company is giving a loan to an outsider, When we give a loan to the outsider, we give it on a regular terms and condition. What is at arm's length price? You can call it as an arm's length price, market price pay. But when you are giving a loan, there are high probability and there are high chances that the company, while granting the loan to its related parties, they might be doing some favorable terms and conditions. They might be agreeing on some favorable terms and conditions which might not be beneficial or which might be prejudicial or detrimental to the interest of the company. They are unfavorable to the company. So company is giving loan to, say for example, let me give you one clarity. Suppose I have 5 crore rupees. I am a company. I have a 5 crore rupees. Now my director is asking for a loan. Now I have a 5 crore rupees of idle money. If I'll put it as an FD in a bank, say for example, I'm getting 8 to 9% rate of interest. If I'll put the 5 crore rupees in an FD, I'll get 8 to 9% of rate of interest. But director is asking me a loan at 4%. Is asking me a loan at 4%. So I can earn 8%, but director is asking me to grant him a loan at the rate of 4%. So tell me one thing, which one is more beneficial? Obviously, sir, even a blind person, even a deaf person can also say, ki, sir, 8% is highly profitable for the company. But instead of depositing it in the bank in the form of FD, I thought of giving it as a loan to the director. Why? Why? You are bringing a loss of 4% on 5 crores of figure to the organization. Am I correct or no? Are you bringing a loss to the organization or not? Yes, we are bringing a loss to the organization at the rate of 4%. That is what you mean by irregular terms and conditions. So here, what do you mean by regularity in the terms and condition? We have to understand regularity in the terms and condition, ki whether the loan granted was at arm's length price or not. Loan granted to the related party was at arm's length price or not. And next thing is, against the company or it is favorable to the company. If it is favorable to the company at arm's length price you have given the loan, no problem. Auditor is not having any problem. But if you are given the loan at a non-arm's length price at a favorable terms and conditions which are irregular and they are detrimental to the interest of the company, in such cases what will happen? In such cases that particular loan must be reported by the auditor under clause number 3. Under the clause number 3. So tell me, what are the 4 concerns so far in the clause number 3? We have understood point number 1, whether there is any loan granted to the related parties or not. Concern number 2, ki whether such loan whether the company is maintaining such register under section 139 for the loans granted to related parties or not. Sir, condition number 3, whether the terms and conditions of such granted loan were regular or irregular. What do you mean by regular? It must be granted at an arm's length price or it must be favorable to the interest of the organization. If it is neither at arm's length price or not favorable to the interest of the organization, then we have to report. And point number 5, what we have to understand, point number 4, what we have to understand, ki whether the loan granted was secured or unsecured. If it is secured, it's good. But if it is unsecured, then it is a point of worry. And if it is secured, we have to see whether the enough security was provided by that related party to the company or not. Are you getting the point? Next point. What is the 5th point? It is the 5th point is relating to schedule of repayment. What is the 5th point? The 5th point is relating to the schedule of repayment. What do you mean by schedule of repayment? Ki whether the principal and interest is being coming back to the company at the regular intervals without any problem or not. Ki is that party, is that related party is returning the loan, is repaying the loan back to the company at the regular intervals or not. Its principal amount as well as its interest amount, both should be paid regularly by that party. If he is a regular, no problem. If he is irregular in returning the loan back to the organization, then there is a point of worry. Everyone clear or not? So tell me, what are the 5 points of worry? Point number 1, loan granted to the related party or not, register under the related party loans have been maintained or not, whether the loan was secured or unsecured, or whether the loan's terms and conditions were favorable or unfavorable to the company, and were they granted at an arm's length price or not. And the most important thing, schedule of repayment, whether that related party is paying the money to the company, at the regular intervals of time or not, or are they regular in repayment of principal amount and interest or not. I hope everyone is clear. तो मैंने डायरेक्टर को लोन दिया, आई हैव गिवन अ लोन टू द डायरेक्टर. इज दैट डायरेक्टर वट एवर ही प्रॉमिस्ड कि ही विल पे मी मंथली दिस इंस्टॉलमेंट एंड दिस मच ऑफ इंटरेस्ट, इज ही रेगुलर इन रीपेमेंट और नॉट? बट But point number 6, sir, what is the point number 3? If the amount of loan granted to the related party is overdue, if the amount of loan granted to the related party is overdue for more than 90 days, do you remember that? We have also understood that in the same way in the banking audit. Banking audit में क्या होता है कि any amount of loan is overdue for more than 90 days, it is called non-performing asset. Same is the case here. Whether the amount overdue has crossed more than 90 days or not. Whether the overdue amount of loan has crossed 90 days or not. If it is overdue for more than 90 days, whether the company has taken the reasonable steps to recover it or not. Are you getting the point? Whether the company has taken the reasonable steps to recover it or not. Sir, इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? अब सुनना ध्यान से. I gave a loan to the director for 1 crore rupees. Are you getting the point? He was very much regular in repayment of the loan, both interest as well as the principal. But it's been 3-4 months. He's unable to pay the money. Say for example, right now July month is going on. His premium, his principal payment and his interest payment and principal repayment is due since March. March means April 1 month, May 2nd month, June 3rd month, and right now it is July. It's been 4 months. 4 months means approximately more than 120 days have passed. The amount is overdue. Now, as a company, if your amount is overdue, which was about to come to you, now are you going to take reasonable actions or not? Are you going to take the corrective actions or not? So that auditor has to verify whether the company has taken any reasonable measures to recover it or not. Now the biggest question mark here is, sir, what do you mean by reasonable measures? अब इसको ध्यान से सुनना, बहुत बार क्वेश्चन है इसके ऊपर. रीजनल मेजर मींस एटलीस्ट वेदर द कंपनी हैज गिवन हिम अ नोटिस और इंटीमेशन कि भैया यू आर ओवरड्यू फॉर मोर देन 90 days or not. That is known as reasonable measure. Need not necessarily be a legal action. Remember one thing, need not necessarily be a legal action taken by the company. Only an intimation is also enough for an auditor कि yes, company is concerned, company has sent the various intimations and notices to that defaulting party to repay the principal and the interest on timely basis. Now see, if the amount is overdue for more than 90 days, whether the company has taken reasonable steps to recover it or not. What do you mean by reasonable steps? At least a reminder notice is more than enough. If the company has given the reminder notice, that is more than enough to be treated as a reasonable step and should not necessarily be a legal notice. Need not be a legal notice. अगर हमने एक छोटा सा reminder notice भी दिया है, that is more than enough for the organization to ensure that yes, this particular company is worried about its overdue repayment. So remember one thing, it is highly intellectual topic. Caro 2016, very important topic, and you know that it is a must question in the examination. So you can't even think of leaving this topic क्योंकि ये leave करने वाला है ही नहीं. It's a very practical thing. This is what you are going to do after getting qualified when you are going to be a practicing CA. अगर आप किसी कंपनी का ऑडिटर बनोगे तो this is what you have to do. Are you getting the point? So let us understand what was clause number 1. अब मैंने बोला था ना, by the time the clauses will be over, we will keep on summarizing them cumulatively so that it will get embedded in your head. Tell me one thing. What was clause number 1? Clause number 1 was fixed assets. What was clause number 1? Fixed assets. In the fixed assets, what was my concern? Sir, books of accounts and records are actually prepared in a better way or not? Right or not? Physical inspection at the physical verification at the regular interval is carried out by the management or not? Third thing, we are going to verify the fixed asset register to understand tangible, intangible, own or leased, and most importantly, any material discrepancies are there or not. Over fixed assets. Next point is relating to inventory. Next clause is relating to inventory. In the inventory, same point, we have to understand whether there are any material discrepancies or not. Point number 2, whether the physical verification of inventory at the regular interval is being taken place by the organization or not, because I told you inventory is a very corrupted and fraudulent area. What is the problem number 3? Problem number 3 is whether the proper books of accounts and records of the inventory are being prepared by the company or not. So clause number 1, fixed asset over. Clause number 2, inventory is over. What is clause number 3? Related party loans. This is the best way to remember them. So clause number 3 is relating to related party loans. Concern number 1, total 6 concerns are there. Concern number 1, whether the company has given any related party loan, yes or no? Yes. Point number 2, was it secured or unsecured? Yes, it was secured or unsecured. We got our answer while doing the verification. Point number 3, whether the company is maintaining the proper register for the same under section 189, register of related party transactions and contracts and arrangements or not. Yes sir, ये भी हो गया. उसके बाद अपना क्या हुआ? Point number 4. What is the point number 4? Is the repayment schedule or is the loan granted was regular in terms and conditions or not? Sir, what do you mean by regular in terms and conditions? At arm's length price. And the second thing, the terms and conditions must be favorable to the company. They should not be unfavorable to the company. Company should not be at any kind of losing end. Are you going to have to see that terms and conditions are regular in nature? Point number 5, if there is any overdue, if the related party is regular in repayment of its principal and interest amount or not. If is regular in repayment of principal, interest and amount, there's no problem. Are you getting the point? But if it's irregular in repayment of principal and interest amount payment, then in that case we have to report. And sixth area where we have to report, okay, if the amount of overdue related party loan is more than 90 days, whether the entity, whether your client has taken the proper measures to recover it or not, or proper recovery measures or not, or corrective measures or not, or corrective action or not, and giving the reminder of intimation, giving the reminder or intimation or notice for the overdue amount is more than enough. It need not necessarily to be a legal action or a legal notice. Are you getting the point? I hope you all are clear with the clause number 1, clause number 2, clause number 3. Clause number 1, fixed asset. Clause number 2, inventory. Clause number 3, related party loans. Now, what is the clause number 4? Very, 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 very important clause. Highly important clause. In this, I will tell you some of the problems, some of the things relating to our. So remember one thing, this is the only clause which is going to take a lot of time to make you understand. Remaining all clauses are very equitable. Are you getting the point? So what is the clause number 1? Compliance of section number 185 and 186. Compliance of section number 185 and 186. So what is 185? What is 186? Loan to the directors. So remember here, especially it is loan to the directors. In the clause number 4, it can be a related party loan. It can be a holding company. It can be a subsidiary company and associate. Don't confuse them. Here specifically we are going to talk about loan to the director. Loan to the director. There the loan granted. There the loan granted, whether the terms and conditions regular or not, other things we have to take care of. Here especially a loan to our most related party called what? Director. So we have to see that if we are granting, first of all, let me tell you one thing, loan to the director is not allowed. Loan to the director is not allowed. If granted, first of all, it is prohibited. If granted, whether we have did the compliance of section number 185 or not. So we have to understand the compliance of section number 185. Along with that, we have to give the compliance of section number 186, that is known as intercorporate loan. Okay, whether the company has given any loan to the another company or not. So first we'll do the compliance of section number 185, what the auditor has to verify in that particular area, and second we'll understand the compliance of section number 186, okay, what the auditor has to check in this particular area. So ready? Chalo, ready. Point number 1. Section number 185 hai kya? First of all, once you will learn the section number 185, then you will understand why the auditor is concerned about the compliance of section number 185. So what is section number 185? Loan to the directors. What is section number 185? Loan to the directors. Now listen, see, any company shall not directly or indirectly give loan, investment, guarantee, security to its what? Directors as per section number 185. तो section number 185 क्या बोलता है? अगर company, no company is allowed to give a loan, to do the investment, to give the guarantee, to give the security to its directors directly or indirectly, then in that case, if you are giving a loan, you are in that case doing the non-compliance of section number 185. Non-compliance of section number 185. It means company is allowed or company is not allowed. Company is not allowed to give directly or indirectly any kind of loan, any kind of investment, any kind of guarantee, any kind of security to its directors. Allowed, not allowed? Not allowed as per section number 185 of Companies Act 2013. Are you getting the point or not? But yes, company can give any loan to the following. company can give any loan to the following. Are you getting the point? What the company can give the loan to the following? Director of a lending company. If the company is giving any loan to its director, first of all, see, don't get confused. Section number 185 क्या है? Section number 185 does not allow. Section number 185 does not allow the company to give a loan to the director. But if the company has given any loan to these parties, which I'm going to discuss, approximately 9 points we have to discuss. If the company is giving loan to these parties, these 9 areas which I'm going to discuss, then in that case we'll understand that yes, company has not complied with section number 185. So remember, what is section number 185? A company is not allowed directly or indirectly to give the loan to its director, to give the investment to the directors, to give the guarantee, to give the security to its directors. But if the company is doing this, then in that case, that will be treated as a non-compliance of section number 185, and on the basis of that, auditor has to report it under clause number 4. So first we are going to finish section number 185, then we are going to finish section number 186. Now remember one thing, if the company has given loan to the director of the lending company, means I am a company, I am giving a loan to my own director only. I am giving a loan to Mr. X, who is the director in my company. I am a company, I am giving a loan to the director of my company. So am I a lending company or not? If the lending company is giving a loan to its own directors, now understand, here Reliance India Limited is giving the loan to its own director. Here Reliance India Limited is giving loan to its own director. So section number 185 will attract or not? Yes, it will attract. So that is allowed or not allowed? Not allowed. Point number 1. If you are giving a loan to the director of holding of the lending company, I am a company, I am not giving a loan to my director, I am giving a loan to the director of my holding company. I am a company, Rohit Grover Limited. There is a holding company XYZ Limited. XYZ Limited director is there to whom I am giving a loan. So I am giving a loan to the director of my holding company. Are you getting the point? Again, section number 185 will attract. So point number 1, where the section number 185 will attract, an auditor has to report if the lending company is giving a loan to its own director. If the lending company is giving the loan to the director of its holding company. And third case, if we are giving a loan to the relative of such director. What do you mean by relative of such director? Director of my company or director of its holding company, to their relatives also if I am giving the loan, then also this section number 185 will attract. So point number 1, a company should not give the loan to its own director. Company should not give the loan to the director of its holding company. Company should not give the loan to the relative of such directors. If the company is giving, if the company found guilty of giving the loan to the director of the holding company and to the relative of such director, in that case section number 185 will be attracting and auditor will report. Clear? Crystal clear? Yes sir, crystal clear. Did you get the point? Point number 4. You are not supposed to give a loan to the partner of such director. Now suppose that director, that particular director is having a partnership firm also. In that partnership firm, his partner is there. I am not giving a loan to my director now. I am giving a loan to the partner of my director. I am giving a loan to the partner of my director, or I am giving a loan to the partner of the director of my holding company. I am giving a loan to the partner of my director, right or not? I am giving a loan to the partner of the director of my holding company. So remember one thing, you cannot give the loan to the director of the company, your own company. You cannot give a loan to the director of your holding company. I cannot give a loan to the relative of this person and this person. I cannot give a loan to the partner of this person and this person. Everyone clear or no? Who is here? Director. Who is here? Director of a lending company. So I cannot give a loan to the director. I cannot give a loan to the relative, to the director of the holding company. Who is this? I cannot give a loan to the relative of such director, and I cannot give a loan to whom? I cannot give a loan to whom? The partner of such director. Partner of such director. Clear? Yes, sir. Clear. I cannot give a loan to that firm also in which such director is a partner. So neither I can give a loan to the partner of such director, nor I can give a loan to his firm also, where he is a partner. So what are the five things? I cannot give a loan. A company cannot give a loan to its own director, cannot give a loan to the director of its holding company, cannot give a loan to the relative of such director, cannot give a loan to the partner of such director, and cannot give a loan to the firm. Am I correct or no? I cannot give a loan to the firm also, in which such director is a partner. I cannot give a loan to that firm where the director's relative is also a partner. और मिट्टी पलीत होगी. अब सुनना ध्यान से. अब सपोज XYZ Limited, one director is there. Are you getting it? Director's wife is a partner in one PQR & Co. Directors XYZ Limited's director's wife is a partner in the PQR & Co. Can this company give a loan to PQR & Co? No. Then also disqualified. Sorry. Then also what? Attraction of section number 185. Everyone clear or not? So tell me the 6 cases. Tell me the 6 cases under which the section number 185 will attract. I cannot give a loan to my director. Clear. I cannot give a loan to the director of my holding company. Clear. Point number 3. I cannot give a loan to the relative of such two directors. I cannot give a loan to the partner of my director or partner of the director of a lending company also. I cannot give a loan to the firm in which my director is a partner. I cannot give a loan to that firm also in which my director's relative is also a partner. Are you getting the point or not? Clear? Crystal clear? Yes, sir. We are clear. अब सुनना ध्यान से. Next point. चलो. Point number 7. I cannot give a loan to such a private company also. I cannot give a loan to such private company where my director is either a director or a member. Suppose I am RG Limited. My director Mr. X is a director in a PQR Private Limited. PQR Private Limited. Remember, this point is completely dedicated to the private limited company. PQR Private Limited में मेरा director is also a director or a member. If my director is a director or a member in a PQR Limited, then in that case, am I supposed to give a loan? Answer is no. Otherwise, section number 185 will attract. समझ में आया? तो स्पेशली इन दैट प्राइवेट कंपनी, सच प्राइवेट कंपनी वेयर माई डायरेक्टर इज अ डायरेक्टर और अ मेंबर. Yes, yes, sir. And I cannot give a loan to such a body corporate also. I cannot give a loan to such body corporate also in which such director or directors, in which my director or directors are holding at least 25% of the shares or voting rights. I was thinking of giving a loan to the body corporate. In that body corporate, some of my directors are also the directors in that body corporate, and they put together, my directors put together, they are holding at least 25% of the share capital of that company or 25% of the voting rights in that company. Then also I am prohibited to give a loan to such body corporate. Are you getting the point? Tell me the 8 points now. Tell me the 8 points now. Point number 1, I cannot give a loan to my director. Yes, sir. I cannot give a loan to the director of my holding company. Yes, sir. I cannot give a loan to the relative of such director. Yes, sir. I cannot give a loan to the partner of such director. Yes, sir. I cannot give a loan to the firm in which my director is a partner. Yes, sir. I cannot give a loan to that firm in which my director's relative is a partner. Yes, sir. I cannot give a loan to such private company in which my director is a director or a member. Yes, sir. I cannot give a loan to such body corporate in which such director or directors are holding at least 25% of the voting rights or shares. क्रिस्टल क्लियर? कितना आसान है याद करना. 8 पॉइंट हो गए. 9th पॉइंट क्या है? आई कैन नॉट गिव अ लोन टू सच बॉडी कॉर्पोरेट इन विच एमडी, बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर और मैनेजर of a body corporate accustomed to act as per the directions of the directors of the lending company. सर इसको समझा दो डिटेल में. अब सुनना ध्यान से. Suppose there is one body corporate called PQR Limited. There is one body corporate called PQR Limited. In that PQR Limited, there is one MD. or their board of directors, or there is a one manager. So PQR Limited's MD, manager or board of directors, they are doing everything what my company, suppose this is my company, so I'm writing my company, this is my company, and that is PQR Limited company. In the PQR Limited company, their manager, their managing director, or their board of directors are accustomed to do the work as per the directions of the directors of my company. My directors are giving the directions to them and they are doing the work accordingly. My directors are giving direction to them and they are doing the work accordingly. Clear? So that body corporate's MD, that body corporate's manager, that body corporate's board of directors are accustomed to act as per the directions of my directors. Then I cannot give a loan to such body corporate also. So tell me the 9 points. Tell me the 9 points. Right or not? Tell me the 9 points. Tell me the 9 points. What are the 9 points? Point number 1. I cannot give a loan to my director. Point number 2, I cannot give a loan to the director of my holding company. Point number 3, I cannot give a loan to the relative of my director. I cannot give a loan to the partner of my director. I cannot give a loan to the firm in which my director is a partner. I cannot give a loan to the firm in which my director's relative is a partner. I cannot give a loan to such private company where my director is a director or a member. I cannot give a loan to such body corporate where my director or directors are holding at least 25% of the voting right. I cannot give a loan to such body corporate where their MD, their manager, their board of directors are doing the work as per the directions. They are dancing on the wishes and directions of my directors. Clear? 100% clear? Yes. But there is one problem. What is the problem? In point number 7, point number 8, and point number 9. So what is point number 7? Point number 7 was private company. Point number 8 was body corporate 25%. Point number 9 was what? Point number 9 was what? It was body corporate where the manager and all are accustomed to act as per the directions of whom? The director. To such particular positions, to such particular situations, loan, guarantee or security can be made only after passing a which resolution? Special resolution, and borrowing entity utilizing such money for its principal business only. Agar that private company, that body corporate and the second body corporate 7.8.9 point, we can give a loan, guarantee, security to such private company, to such body corporate, by passing a special resolution. Condition number 1, by passing a special resolution. And point number 2, condition number 2, if the borrowing entity is utilizing my lent money, or their borrowed funds for their principal business activity only. If they are able to prove me that they are not misutilizing the funds, they are utilizing the funds for the principal business activity, and if the company is able to pass the special resolution, in such case loan, guarantee, security is possible only in case of point number 7, point number 8, point number 9. What is point number 7? Such private company, such body corporate, such body corporate. Everyone clear? Sir, crystal clear or not? Yes, sir, crystal clear. Clear or not? Next one. Okay, exceptions. Where we can give the loans? We can give a loan to the MD or whole time director, but by passing a which resolution? Special resolution. Sir, section का नाम क्या था? Loan to the director is prohibited. Loan to the MD or manager is not prohibited. Loan to the director is prohibited, section number 185, but loan to the MD or whole time director we can give by passing a which resolution? Special resolution. Clear? Yes, sir. And it is being granted in the ordinary course of business. Means what? I am into the financing activity. मेरा जो कंपनी का बिजनेस है वो lending business है. My company is having a lending business. मेरा काम ही financing है. Company's main principal business activity is lending only, and when my principal activity is lending and I am lending it to the director or to the MD or to the manager or to anyone, then in that case it is an exception. It will not attract section number 185. If my business is a lending business, then in that case it will not attract section number 185. And if I am lending the loan to the MD and the whole time director by passing a special resolution, then also it is an exception to section number 185. Point number 3, to its wholly owned subsidiary. Sir, wholly owned subsidiary का मतलब क्या होता है? The 100% of the control is there on that subsidiary. और जब आपकी वो wholly owned subsidiary है, you are not going to give the money, then who will give? If you are not going to feed your subsidiary, then who will feed the subsidiary? I have a right to give the loan to my wholly owned subsidiary. तो what are the 3 exceptions, sir? पूरा को पूरा section 185 समझ में आया? अभी we are in the clause number 4. In the clause number 4, section number 185. So first you have to understand section number 185 to understand what this clause is all about. If any of the violation what we have read so far in section number 185 has been noticed by the statutory auditor, he is going to report it under clause number 5. Everyone clear? Sorry, clause number 4. Everyone clear? Yes sir, we are clear. अब सुनेंगे ध्यान से. Point number 1. What is section number 185? जल्दी जल्दी रिवाइज करेंगे. Loan to the director indirectly or directly by the company, any guarantee, investment, security, allowed or not allowed? Not allowed. Now, under what circumstances section number 185 will attract? Section number 185 will attract if we are giving a loan to our director, if we are giving a loan to the holding director of the holding company, if we are giving a loan to the partner of my director, if we are giving a loan to the relative of the director, if we are giving a loan to the firm in which that director is a partner, if we are giving a loan to that firm in which that director's relative is a partner, if ये special cases है 7, 8, 9, if we are giving a loan to such private company where that director is a director or a member, we are giving a loan to the body corporate where such director or directors put together are holding at least 25% of the capital or the voting rights, and we are giving a loan to that body corporate where the MD, manager and board of directors of such body corporate are accustomed to do the work as per the wishes and directions of my directors. But we have understood one exception कि in the case number 7 private company, in the case number 8 body corporate, in the case number 8 body corporate, where the exception is there, yes, we can grant them a loan giving us guarantee or security if by passing a special resolution, and if that private company, body corporate or the another body corporate is able to prove me that कि they are going to use the borrowed funds for the principal business activity. Next point. Okay. Under what circumstances exceptions are there? If I am giving a loan by passing a special resolution to my MD and whole-time director, if I am giving a loan to whom? If I am giving a loan to whom? I am giving a loan in my ordinary course of business because my major line of business is a lending business. And if I am giving a loan, giving a guarantee or security to my wholly owned subsidiary. Everyone clear? If there is any violation of section number 185, what we have read just now, understood just now, then we have to report it under CARO 2016, para 3, clause 4. सर 185 मजा आया? सर मजा आ गया 185. आगे बढ़ते हैं. अभी 185 के आगे क्या है? सेक्शन नंबर 186. अभी क्लॉज 4 खत्म नहीं हुआ, अभी सेक्शन नंबर 186 करेंगे. सर व्हाट इज सेक्शन नंबर 186? 186 टॉक्स अबाउट द विच लोन्स? इंटर corporate loans means a loan taking place between a company and a company. Intercorporate means what? A loan taking place between company and company. I think by doing these sections in details, I am helping you out in the CA final. These two particular sections also very important section और बहुत बार examination में आता है. ठीक है? Next point. So what is the board of directors power? What is the board of directors power? How much power is there in the hands of board of directors when they want to lend or give a loan to the another company? Now, I am a lending company. Say for example, the board of directors have a power to lend a loan to the another company. But what is their board of directors power? It should not be the intercorporate loan by the board of directors should not be more than higher of the following. Should not be more than higher of the following. It means what is the higher of the following? 60% of the total paid up share capital plus free reserve plus securities premium. 60% of the total paid up share capital plus free reserves plus securities premium, or 100% of the free reserves or securities premium, whichever is higher. That is the maximum intercorporate loan the board of directors can lend. Are you getting the point? Are you getting the point? Section number 186 क्या है? Intercorporate loans, a loan which is taking place between the two companies. How much is the board of directors powers? Board of director power क्या है कि they cannot lend more than how much? Higher of these two. They cannot lend more than higher of these two. You can see this sign. This is called higher of these two. Now what is these two? 60% of total paid up share capital plus free reserve plus securities premium, or 100% of the free reserves plus securities premium. We will calculate these two figures. Whichever is higher, that is a maximum power what the board of directors can lend a loan to the another company. That is intercorporate loan. Everyone clear? Yes sir, we are clear. अब सुनना ध्यान से, beyond such limit, if you are thinking of giving a loan beyond this limit, sir, what do you mean by beyond this limit? Beyond the limit which is prescribed to the board of directors. Beyond the board of directors powers, if you want to give a loan more than that, then in that case, special resolution by shareholders is required. If the company has not followed section number 186 while lending a loan to the another company, then also clause number 4 will be reported, and then also section number 186 will get attracted, and auditor has to report कि company has not passed special resolution or company has gone beyond the board powers, or board of directors have gone beyond their powers before for lending the loan to the another company. तो मैं आपको एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल बताता हूँ. Let's say for example equity share capital is 140 crores, right? Free reserves are 10 crores, right? And what do you say, securities premium is 50 crores. So this is the total figure. Say for example, what is the board of directors power? Board of directors power is 60% of all these three. So 140 plus 10 plus 50, how much is that? It is 200. 200 का 60% कितना हुआ? 120 crores, or 100% of the free reserves of securities premium. What is 100% of free reserves and securities premium? 100% of the free reserves and securities premium is how much? It is 60 crores. 100% of free reserves and securities premium is how much? 60 crores. So 60 crores or 120 crores, whichever is higher. The board of directors can give 120 crores of intercorporate loan. By whom? By the board of directors. Everyone clear? But they want to give the 140 crores of loan. Now, is it beyond their power or not? Yes, beyond their power. For that, they need to pass a which resolution? Special resolution. If they are not passing this special resolution, it is going to be reported under clause number 4 by the statutory auditor कि company has not complied with section number 186. I hope सबको समझ में आया. तो जल्दी जल्दी क्यूमुलेटिवली 4 क्लॉजेस याद करते हैं. क्लॉज नंबर 1 वाज रिलेटिंग टू रिपोर्टिंग फॉर फाइनेंस फिक्स्ड एसेट्स. क्लॉज नंबर 2 रिलेटिंग टू रिपोर्टिंग फॉर इन्वेंटरी. क्लॉज नंबर 3 रिलेटिंग टू रिलेटेड पार्टी लोन्स. क्लॉज नंबर 4 रिलेटिंग टू the non-compliance of or compliance of section number 185 or section number 186. What is 185? Loan to directors. What is 186? Intercorporate loans. If there is any difficulty in this thing, just revise it again and again, go back to the video and just make sure that you are perfect. अगर जब तक आप perfect नहीं हो रहे, don't go to the next clause. Don't go to the next clause. Clear? Now, clause number 5. What is clause number 5? Clause number 5 is relating to public deposits. Clause number 5 is relating to public deposits. Sir, what is relating to public deposit? अब सुनना ध्यान से. If the company has accepted any public deposits under section 73 to 76, if the company has accepted any kind of public deposits under section 73 to 76, ये हमने intermediate में करा हुआ acceptance of public deposits chapter. In that, if the company has accepted any public deposits under section 73 to 76, accepted it or repayment or default, there are 3 areas what the auditor has to check when it comes to the public deposit. Is the company accepted the public deposit in the regular terms and conditions or not? Yes, by complying section number 73 to 76. Whether the compliance they have followed while making the repayment or not, and if the company has defaulted, whether that particular default is being carried out intentionally or not. So all that is written under section number 73 to 76. Is the company accepting anything? Then also we have to report. If the company is defaulting in repayment, then also we have to report. If the company has any repayment problems, then also we have to report. Right or not? If there is any violation of section number 73 to 76, yaad rakhna, it is highly important topic. Public deposit means you can't even imagine. Public deposits are very important from the company's point of view. There are so many restrictions in the section number 73 to 76. Go back to intermediate level now. The total acceptance of public deposit rules have been changed. Total acceptance. So obviously we are not going to discuss those things. So remember one thing, if the company has done any kind of violation in acceptance of public deposits, company has done any kind of violation in repayment of public deposits, or company has done any kind of violation while making a default of repaying the public deposits, in such condition, they are violating section number 73 to 76, the auditor has to report it under clause number 5. Are you getting the point? And if there is any default, whether any order of NCLT, order of any RBI, or order of any court has been put up on the company or not. If the NCLT, RBI, or any court has ordered the company to pay, whether the company has complied with that order or not, that also we have to check. Clear? Acceptance of public deposit में section number 73 to 76 compliance we have to check. Whether the company is good in accepting, good in repayment, and company should not have defaulted in repayment of public deposits. If they have defaulted in the repayment of public deposit, concern number 2, whether any NCLT or whether any RBI or whether any court order has been put up on the company, and if any court order or RBI or NCLT order is there, whether that company is basically taking care of that order or complied with their order or not. If complied, if they're good in accepting, good in repaying, and no default, then okay, no need to report. Otherwise, if there is any non-compliance of section number 73 to 76 relating to public deposits, then there is a problem. Then the company need to, then the statutory auditor need to report it under clause number 5. So again repeat, what are the 5 cumulative clauses we have done? Clause number 1 relating to fixed assets reporting, inventory reporting, related party loans, compliance of section number 185, 186, and public deposits. Section number for public deposits 73 to 76. What are the 3 concerns? Acceptance, repayment, default, if any, we have to report, and any order given by the NCLT, RBI, or any other court order, whether company has complied it or not. Right now, if everything is regular, no need to report. But if there is a problem, we have to report. Everyone clear? Yes, sir. Everyone is clear. Now, next point. Next point is relating to maintenance of cost records under section 148. So this will definitely understand under section 148. So I will tell you under section 148 kya hota hai. 148 is all about cost audit. So those companies, those manufacturing companies, those extraction companies, mining companies, you can say that plantation companies, oil field companies, assembling companies, processing companies, production companies, those who are basically into the manufacturing activity companies, to them, along with the section number 128 normal books of accounts, 128 normal books of accounts like assets, liability, sales, purchase, receipts, and payment, they also have to maintain additional books of accounts. They are known as cost records. Those books of accounts are called cost records, and they have to maintain such cost records as per CRA 1. What is the form number? CRA 1. So as per CRA 1, those manufacturing, assembling, processing, extraction, mining, production companies have to maintain the cost records additionally, in addition to their normal books of accounts as per section number 128. If the auditor finds that the cost records as per CRA 1 have not been prepared, have not been maintained by the organization, then in that case we have to report it under clause number 6 ki company failed to maintain the cost records as per the requirements of section number 148 as per form number CRA 1. Everyone clear? So tell me, what is the clause number 6? Every manufacturing company, assembling company, production company, mining company, extraction company, which is involved in the use of labor and raw material, in addition to their normal books of accounts as per section number 128, they also have to maintain the cost records as per section number 148 as per form number CRA 1. If the company fails to maintain such cost records, then the auditor, statutory auditor, has to report it under clause number 6 of para 3 of CARO 2016 under section 143 subsection 11. Super clear? Clear or not? Yes, sir, clear. So what are the 6 clauses we have done? Chalo, repeat karo. What are the 6 clauses we have done? Fixed assets we have done. Inventory, related party loans, compliance of section number 185, 186. 5th one, public deposits 73 to 76. 6th one, maintenance of cost records, section number 148. Everyone clear? Yes, sir. We are clear now. Clause number 7. What is the clause number 7? Clause number 7 talks about statutory dues. What is clause number 7? Statutory dues. Ab suno. What do you mean by statutory dues? Direct taxes, indirect taxes, any duty, any cess, any GST, any custom, any income tax, any wealth tax. These are known as the statutory obligations of a company. If the company is regular, in payment of its undisputed statutory taxes or not? Whether the company is regular in payment of its statutory dues or not. Are you getting the point? Whether the company is regular in payment of its statutory dues or not. Statutory dues are of two types. Undisputed statutory dues, where the company and the authority does not have any kind of dispute. Disputed statutory dues. Sir, let me ask you one thing. I paid 50 lakhs of tax. I paid 50 lakhs of income tax as a company. Now, income tax assessment order came to me and they are demanding 60 lakhs actually. They are saying that as per their records, it is 60 lakhs. How much I already paid? 50 lakhs. So, 50 lakhs is undisputed or disputed? 50 lakhs is undisputed. Even I agree that 50 lakhs is my obligation. Even they agree also 50 lakhs is my obligation. But how much extra they are asking? 10 lakhs. That 10 lakhs is known as disputed statutory dues, where my and the authority dispute is going on. They are asking me 60. According to me, it is 50. So, what is the dispute? 10 lakhs. But what about the 50 lakhs? That is undisputed or not? I should be regular in the payment of my statutory dues. Which one? Undisputed statutory dues. At least I should be regular in payment of my undisputed statutory dues. And the second concern is, if the statutory dues are due for more than what? 6 months from the last date of the financial year. Are you getting the point or not? So understand this point. First of all, this clause is relating to statutory dues. So statutory dues means taxes, duties, cess, any kind of amount we are obliged or we are under an obligation to pay to the authority. Dues can be of two types: statutory dues and disputed disputes, disputed taxes, and undisputed. Are you getting it? It can be of two types of dues. It can be disputed, it can be undisputed. Sir, what do you mean by undisputed statutory dues? Undisputed statutory dues are those statutory dues where me and the authority both are agreeing. I should be regular in repayment of that. Why should I delay in the undisputed one? Yes, delay can take place when it is a disputed statutory dues. If it is a disputed statutory dues, then we have to take out the evidence that they have disputed the demand raised by the particular authority. As an auditor, you have to ask the evidence from the company कि when the income tax department is demanding 60 lakhs, you have already paid what? 50 lakhs. So, undisputed statutory dues of 50 lakhs already paid. How much is not paid? 10 lakhs is not paid. Now, we have to take the evidence from the company कि did you raise the dispute which is demanded by the authority or not. If the company is saying yes, we have raised the dispute, we have sent them a letter कि yes, according to us only 50 lakhs is only to be paid, then give me the evidence. Who is asking this? Statutory auditor is asking कि give me the evidence of raising of dispute by you. So, company should provide the evidence that they have disputed the demand raised by the particular authority. Now, see the example. So, say for example, income tax department is raising an order of 50 crores. Are you getting the point? I am saying that according to the company, it is 45 crores. Now tell me, 50 crores they are asking, 45 crores company is saying. How much is undisputed? Undisputed is 45. At least pay that regularly as a company. If the company has not paid undisputed statutory dues, then in that case there is a problem. Then the auditor has to report it under clause number 8. Are you getting the point? But what is the disputed one? So 50 minus 45, it means 5 crore is a disputed tax. If that is disputed, we have to ask the company, did you raise any dispute for this to the authority or not? If they are ready to tell us that yes, we have raised the dispute to the authority, then I will ask them, give me the evidence for such dispute raised. Are you getting the point? In case the disputed statutory dues, whether the dispute is going on, if the dispute is going on, where it is going on, in which authority and which tribunal and in which court, mention that also in your Caro report. Ask the company to whom you have raised the demand, to whom you have raised the dispute. So they are saying we have raised the dispute with the ITAT. Show me the letter. When it was raised, is it still going on? Yes, it is still going on. Then the auditor's responsibility ki wherever the authority this dispute is going on, mention the name of the authority also where this dispute is going on and amount of arrears involved in that dispute. What was the amount of arrears involved? 5 crores. So amount also you have to disclose in your Caro report, plus it is going on in ITAT, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal. Okay, you have to raise it. You have to mention the name of the authority also. So basically, what we are reporting basically under clause number 8, we are reporting two things. Point number 1, company should be regular in the repayment of its what? Company should be regular in the repayment of its what? Undisputed statutory dues. Point number 1. If there is any arrears, are those arrears more than 6 months? If there are more than 6 months of arrears, that also you have to report. Next thing, is there whether the company has raised the dispute with the authority demanding the extra tax liability or not? If yes, then what is the evidence that you have raised the dispute? If you have the evidence, then show me how much was the arrear amount which is under the dispute and in which authority it is going on. These are the various areas you have to remember when it comes to clause number 7 relating to statutory dues. Sorry, not clause number 8, clause number 7 relating to statutory dues. So jaldi bata do, what are the clauses we are done with? Clause number 1 relating to fixed assets, clause number 2 relating to reporting for inventory, clause number 3 relating to what? Clause number 3 relating to what? Clause number 3 relating to clause number 3 relating to related party loans. Clause number 4 relating to what? Section number 185, 186 compliance. Clause number 5 ऐसे ही होता ना जब हम लोग स्टूडेंट होते हैं ऐसा करके करते ना. Yes. So clause number 6. Clause number 5 relating to acceptance of public deposits. Clause number 6 relating to cost records. Section number 148. Clause number 7 payment of statutory dues. Everyone clear or not? Yes. So this is what all about. This is what all about the statutory dues. And you can see that those statutory dues which are in arrear for more than 6 months from the end of the financial year also are required to be reported. I hope everyone is clear relating to clause number 7. Yes, sir. We are clear relating to clause number 7. What is clause number 8? Clause number 8 is relating to repayment of borrowings. Clause number 8 is relating to what? Repayment of borrowings. Sir, what do you mean by repayment of borrowings? Now, listen to this case. Suppose there is a company. It has raised a term loan. It has raised debentures. It has raised any kind of loan or borrowings from the banks, financial institutions, government or debenture holders. Now, what is your responsibility when you take the borrowings? It is your responsibility to repay your borrowings at the regular intervals without any fail. You have to repay the borrowings at the regular intervals without any fail. So see, repayment of borrowings means borrowings can be a loan from the banks and financial institutions. Borrowings can be the government from the debenture holders. Company should be regular in repayment of such borrowings or not. That is a major concern. Or repayment means what? Repayment means including two things: principal amount and interest amount. Repayment means you should be regular in payment of your principal amount also. You should be regular in payment of the interest amount also. If the company is defaulting in repaying its principal and in repaying its interest, then in that case it will be reported under clause number 8. तो बहुत छोटा सा क्लॉज है कि if the company has any outstanding borrowings, the auditor has to verify कि whether the company is regular in the repayment of its borrowings in terms of interest payment and principal repayment or not. If the company is regular in repayment of its borrowing and payment of its interest, then in that case no problem. But if it is irregular, as an auditor you have to report it under clause number 8 of para 3 of Caro 2016 specified under section 143 subsection 11. समझ में आया सर? ठीक है सर. So what are the 8 clauses we are done with? We are done with the fixed assets, clause number 1, clause number 2, inventory, clause number 3, related party loans, clause number 4, compliance of section number 185, 186, clause number, what is 185? Loan to directors. What is 186? Intercorporate loan. Clause number 5, 73 to 76, public deposit. Clause number 6, public cost records. Clause number 7, payment of statutory dues, and clause number 8, repayment of borrowings. ठीक है सर. So we will take a small short break of 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes let's take the 5 minutes to consume this topic inside you. ठीक है, तो अपन 5 minutes का break लेंगे. We will consume this topic and accordingly we'll continue. Are you getting the point? We'll continue after the 5 minutes. So let's take a 5 minutes of break. You take the 5 minutes of break because it takes a time to consume this topic. Right or not? And if you are unable to retain it, keep on rotating the video. Keep on rotating the video and keep on seeing the lecture again and again. Right? Chalo, see you guys after the 5 minutes of break. Thank you so much. Chalo. So welcome back again. चलो कंटिन्यू करते हैं with the another 8 clauses. तो जल्दी जल्दी बता दो what are the 8 clauses we have already done with. So 8 clauses what we are done with is clause number 1 fixed assets, clause number 2 inventory, clause number 3 related party loans, clause number 4 intercorporate loans, clause number 4 compliance of section 185 and 186 intercorporate and loan to directors, clause number 5 is section number 1 section number 73 to 76 relating to public deposits, clause number 6 क्या है cost record section number 148, clause number 7 payment of statutory dues, and clause number 8 repayment of borrowings. Now what is clause number 9? Very important clause. Now understand that. Now sometimes the company is in need of funds. So sometimes the company raise the money via IPO. What is IPO? Initial public offer. Sometimes the company raise the money via FPO, further public offer. Sometimes the company raise the money via debentures. Sometimes the company raise the money via term loans. So are you getting the point or not? So most of the students get confused between clause number 8 and clause number 9. But there is no confusion. Clause number 8 is completely dedicated to repayment of borrowings. Clause number 9 is relating to end use of that borrowings. Okay, are we utilizing the money for the correct purpose for which we have raised or not? So let me give you an example. Say for example, a company raised the 10,000 crore rupees via IPO and FPO by issuing a share capital. Or company took 1,000 crores of loan rupees in the form of term loans. Or company raised 10,000 crores of debentures. Are you getting the point? So this money people have paid you because you have told them that you are going to use it for this particular purpose or that particular purpose. The basic idea behind clause number 9 reporting is what? Auditor is going to verify, the statutory auditor is going to verify कि whatever the monies you have raised via IPO, via FPO, via debentures, via term loans, whether the end use of those borrowings is properly utilized by the entity in a good way or not. Is the money getting utilized or is the money getting misutilized? Sir, what do you mean by utilize, misutilize? Suppose I told in the prospectus that I am ABC Limited, I am raising this money 10,000 crore rupees for establishing the 100 factories across India. But I am using that money for my personal purpose. So end use, what is the end use of that borrowing? End use should have been for opening of the factories across India. But I am using that money for what? I am using that money for buying my flats or buying my property or repaying my personal loans and all. So tell me, is the end use of the borrowing justified or unjustified? Unjustified, unreasonable. So here the auditor is saying that whatever the loans you have taken from the banks, whatever the debentures you have raised, whatever the capital you have raised via IPO and FPO, are you making the best utilization of the money which you have raised or not? If the auditor finds out that end use of the borrowing is for the purpose for which it was not given, or it was not utilized for the purpose for which it was given, then in that case auditor has to report it under clause number 9. Clear? Now see, what is clause number 9? End use of the issue proceeds and term loans. So if the company has raised the money via IPO, FPO, if the company has raised the money via term loans on debentures, now whether the end use का मतलब क्या है कि where you are utilizing the money, whether the end use or application of such money is being applied for the purpose for which it was raised or not. Are you utilizing that money for the purpose for which it was raised or not? If you are not utilizing the money for the purpose for which it was raised, then in that case auditor is going to report it under clause number 9. Are you getting the point or not? So example, company has raised 10,000 crore rupees in the via FPO and IPO. They told in the prospectus that they are going to open the 10 factories of iron and steel. Are you getting the point? But you are utilizing that money of 10,000 crore rupees for your which benefit? Personal benefit. So this is the actual use, and this is what you are, this is the matlab proposed use, and this is what actually you are using. Are you getting the point or not? So from the proposed use and the actual use, there's a huge variation. You took it for opening the factories, but you are utilizing it for your own personal benefit. It means end use of the borrowing is not correct. That is what the auditor is concerned. That is what he has to report it under clause number 9 of what? Raising the money via IPO, FPO, and understanding whether the end use of the borrowing is being properly utilized or not. Are you getting the point? So this is what brings an end to our clause number 9. So let's move to the clause number 10 now. What is clause number 10? Fraud reporting. Sir, what is clause number 10? Fraud reporting. Now clause number 10, fraud reporting. Anyways, we are going to do this section at the later stage also, section number 143 subsection 12. Ab sunna dhyan se. If you are a statutory auditor, let me give you one clarification here, section number 143 subsection 12 clarification here only, but we are going to do it in detail when we'll understand the section 143 subsection 12 separately after this video. Now see, suppose you are a statutory auditor, you are doing an audit. You are a statutory auditor, you are doing an audit. While doing the audit, you came across any material misstatement, any omission, intentional omission, any fraud, any kind of misrepresentation, then it is the duty of the statutory auditor to report it under section number 143 subsection 12 to the central government within 60 days. Within how many days? Within 60 days. So don't worry, I am taking this here, I am taking the clause here in a very light way, but yes, definitely we are going to have a very discussion. We are going to have a very detailed discussion on this clause in our next video. But I am telling you, if you are a statutory auditor, you are doing an audit, you came across any kind of fraud, then what is your responsibility? Your responsibility is to report that fraud to the central government within 60 days. You have to report that fraud to the central government within 60 days. But if the fraud amount, after quantification, if the fraud amount is less than 1 crore rupees, your duty is only to report it to the audit committee or board of directors within 2 days. Your duty will be over if you are reporting to the board of directors and audit committee within 2 days if the fraud amount is less than 1 crore. But if the fraud amount is more than equal to 1 crore, then your duty is to report it to the central government within 60 days. What is that procedure of 60 days? That I will discuss separately under section 143 subsection 12. So remember one thing, what is clause number 10? Fraud reporting. What is clause number 10? Fraud reporting. So auditor has to see that during his audit, did he come across any kind of fraud or not? And if the fraud amount is less than 1 crore, he must have reported it within 2 days to the audit committee or the board of directors. If the fraud amount is greater than equals to 1 crore, he must have reported to the audit committee and board of directors within 2 days. But after that, taking the comments from them, after taking the justification from them, he needs to report it to the central government within the span of 60 days in the form number ADT 4. So all these discussions we are going to have in detail when we'll do in the next video, section number 143 subsection 12. So remember one thing, any kind of fraud taken place in the organization, an auditor came across about that fraud, he needs to report that particulars of those frauds, every detail of that fraud under clause number 10 of CARO 2016 under section 143 subsection 11. Are you getting the point? And what is the fraud reporting clause? It is called duty to report a fraud, and that section number is 143 subsection 12. So 143 subsection 11 is CARO 2016, 143 subsection 12 is fraud reporting. So fraud reporting section, anyways, we are going to do separately. I hope everyone is clear. Yes sir, clear. So remember one thing, you have to report a fraud under the CARO clause number 10 if you come across any kind of fraud, right? Next point. ठीक है, अपन इसको डिटेल में डिस्कशन करेंगे नेक्स्ट सेशन में. नाउ व्हाट इज क्लॉज नंबर 11? Clause number 11 is relating to managerial remuneration, which is given as per section number 197, and there's a particular schedule for that section, schedule number 4. अब जनरली आई हैव टू गिव यू द जनरल आइडिया कि मैनेजरियल रेम्यूनरेशन का मतलब क्या होता है. द रेम्यूनरेशन विच इज पेड टू द KMPs, की मैनेजरियल पर्सन्स एंड डायरेक्टर्स ऑफ द कंपनी. Now, maximum allowed is 11% of the net profits. Maximum allowed is how much? 11% of the net profits. Are you getting the point or not? Only to the KMPs, maximum allowed is only to the KMP maximum nowadays. If there's one KMP, he will not be getting more than 5%. To the KMP, to the individual KMP, it should not be more than 5%. If there are 2 or more KMPs, then it should not be more than 10%. To all KMPs should not be more than 10%. If there is one KMP, he should not get more than 5%. And along with the directors and KMPs, if both are there in the organization, put together, they should not get either 6% or 11%. So that we have to discuss in section number 197, which is there in your law. So if the basically idea of this clause is particularly is what? Maximum remuneration allowed by the company to be paid to the KMPs via section number 197 is 11% of the net profits. If you want to understand in detail what is section number 197, for that you need to refer your corporate law book of your CA final where section number 197 will be given. मैं तुम्हें आइडिया देता हूँ, रफ आइडिया कि maximum remuneration which you can pay to the KMPs are 11% of the net profits. Are you getting the point? In that 11%, 1% goes to the directors and 10% goes to the KMPs. And if it is 6%, if one KMP and number of directors are there, maximum you can give 6%. That 5% go to KMP and 1% goes to directors. If there are no KMPs in the organization, only directors are there, then maximum 3% of the net profits. This is what section number 197 is talking about. But sir, what is the concern of this section in our CARO? If the company is paying more than that, without obtaining any permission from the central government, without obtaining any prior permission from the central government, because if you want to pay more than that, you have to obtain the prior permission from the central government. So you can see that. Now look at the example which I told you. If there are 4 directors and 1 KMP, what I told you? Directors and 1 KMP, 6%. So 1% is for the directors, 5% is for the KMP. If there are 5 directors and no KMP, now there is not even a single KMP, then 3% of the net profits, total 3% will go to whom? Directors. If there are directors plus 2 or more KMPs, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many KMPs are there? Then maximum 11%. In that 11%, 1% for the directors and 10% for the KMPs. Are you getting the point or not? So if the company is paying more than that, now tell me, is it a worrying point or not? Then the auditor, as a statutory auditor, he needs to report it to the concerned authority, to the shareholders, that yes, our company is paying more than section number 197 managerial remuneration to these directors and KMPs. Are you getting the point or not? Samajh mein? Are you getting the point or not? Now, see, if you want to pay more than 11%, I told you prior approval of central government is required, plus ordinary resolution must have been passed. If you want to pay more than 11%, which resolution must have been passed? Ordinary resolution must have been passed. If you want to pay more than 10% to the KMPs, special resolution must have been passed. Only to the KMPs you want to pay more than 10%, special resolution must have been passed. Total 11%, you want to pay more than 11% to all the directors and KMPs, ordinary resolution must have been passed. Next point, if you want to pay more than 1% or 3% to the directors, then again ordinary resolution is required. But if you want to pay more than 10%, to the KMPs, which resolution? Special resolution is required. Note 2, without approval paid. If you paid without approval, the excessive, I told you now, whose approval? Central government approval, sir. If you paid without approval, then in that case, excessive remuneration paid must be refunded within 2 years. More than 10% you paid without passing a special resolution. More than 11% you paid without passing an ordinary resolution. More than 3% or 1% you paid to the directors without passing an ordinary resolution. You have not taken the central government approval and you are paying just like that. It means you are completely violating section number 197. And you are not taking the approval, special resolution and other things also. Then in that case, what will happen? Then in that case, statutory auditor's responsibility is to ensure that he should report it to the shareholders कि भैया company is paying more than what is required. And he has to ensure that the excessive remuneration paid must have been refunded within how many years? It must have been refunded within 2 years. Excessive remuneration paid must have been refunded within 2 years. I hope everyone is clear. Yes, sir. Everyone is clear. Clear? Done, sir. So the company may waive the recovery. Company may waive the recovery of such excessive remuneration paid by passing a special resolution within 2 years. If the company does not want to take the refund, if the company is saying, okay, let's make sure that they are taking the excessive remuneration, but at the time of paying they did not pass the special resolution, then they can still pass the special resolution in the next 2 years. Either they should return the excessive remuneration within the 2 years, or the company should pass a special resolution. Company should pass the special resolution within the 2 years to waive off the recovery right of the company. I don't want to recover excess repayment, then the company has to pass a which resolution? Special resolution they have to pass within a span of 2 years. If the company is doing any kind of violation of these things, then it is a responsibility of the statutory auditor to report it under clause number 11, which is managerial remuneration. I hope everyone is clear. Yes, sir, we are clear. What is clause number 12? Clause number 12 is for Nidhi companies and chit fund companies. What is the clause number 12? Clause number 12 is for Nidhi companies and chit fund companies. What is a Nidhi company, chit fund company? Requirement number 1, the statutory auditor has to see that ki Nidhi company or chit fund company is not accepting the total deposits from the public more than 20 times of its own net own funds. नहीं समझ में आया? अब सुनो, I am a Nidhi company, I am a chit fund company. Am I going to accept the deposit from the public? Yes. My own net owned funds are 10 crores. My own net owned funds are 10 crores. Into 20 times what? How much? Into 20 times how much? 200 crores is the maximum public deposits I can receive from the public. Maximum public deposits I can recover from the public. Everyone clear or not? So tell me, what is my net owned funds? My net owned funds are 10 crores. Say for example, into 20 times. So what is the ratio? Net owned funds to outside deposit ratio should not be exceeding 1:20. If I have the 10 crore rupees of my net owned funds, maximum 200 crores of public deposits I can accept. If I'll accept 200 crores 1 rupee, then auditor has to report it under clause number 12. That is a provision number 1. The auditor has to check, sir, what is the provision? Shall not accept deposits more than 20 times of its net owned funds. You shall not accept the deposits more than 20 times of your net owned funds and out of your total assets. Out of your total assets, total balance sheet assets. On the asset side, whatever is the total balance sheet assets, minimum 10% should be maintained by the chit fund or Nidhi company in its what? Liquid form. What do you mean by liquid form? Which are easily convertible into cash. Which are easily convertible into cash. समझ में आया? So in case of Nidhi company and chit fund funds, what are the two things the auditor, statutory auditor has to verify? Sir, point number 1. First thing I have to verify, the net owned funds to outside deposit ratio shall not be in any case more than 1:20. Second thing what I have to verify, out of the total assets which are appearing in my balance sheet, minimum 10% I have to maintain as a chit fund or Nidhi company within, in which form? Liquid form. Everyone clear? I have to maintain it in the which form? Liquid form. So these are the various examples are given. So you can see that. So suppose 10 crore is a net owned funds, maximum 20% is the 200 crores I can receive as a deposits. So if you are not complying with these provisions, then I have to report it under clause number 12. I hope everyone is clear. Yes sir, everyone is clear. Clause number 13. Ab sunna, 13 or 3 mein there is one relationship. Between 13 and 3, there is a relationship. What was 3? Related party loans granted. Related party loans granted. Here it is related party transaction, not loans. Related party transaction. If the company is doing any related party transaction, sir, what do you mean by transaction? Rendering of services or availing of services from their related party. Selling of goods and material, selling of goods and material and services, and purchasing of goods and material and services from the related party. Now leasing the property or taking the lease from the, what do you say, related party. Selling the property or buying the property from the related party. Appointed any relating party on the place of profit. Are you getting the point or not? Appointing any related party on the place of profit. Are you getting the point? That is section number 188, related party transactions. Section number 188. What was the section over there? 189, register and loans to the related party. Here it is not loans, there it is loans, but here it is what? Transaction. So whenever the company is doing any related party transaction, whenever the company is doing any related party transaction of buying and selling of services, buying and selling of goods, buying and selling of property, or leasing and taking lease from the related party, with your related party, if you are doing a related party transaction, it must be under the authorization of ऑडिट कमेटी स्पेसिफाइड अंडर सेक्शन 177. आपको ऑडिट कमेटी की परमिशन लेना जरूरी है. ऑडिट कमेटी एंड बोर्ड रेजोल्यूशंस आर मस्ट इफ यू आर डूइंग एनी रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन विद योर रिलेटेड पार्टी एट आर्म्स लेंथ प्राइस. एट विच प्राइस? Arm's length price. If at the arm's length price you are doing the related party transaction with your related party, then board approval and shareholders board approval and audit committee approval is must. That if the company has not taken, we have to report it under clause number 13. Are you getting the point? So see, if the company is doing any related party transaction with its related party at what? Arm's length price, no problem. Arm's length price means market price, no problem. You do whatever the related party transactions with your related party at arm's length price, there is no problem. But if you are doing it at a favorable price, there is a problem. So company doing related party transaction with its related party. What are those transactions? Availing and rendering of services, supply of services, purchase of goods, scale of goods, purchase and sale of property, any kind of related party transaction with your related party, if the company is doing at arm's length price, no problem. Other than arm's length price, at a favorable price, you are doing any kind of transaction with your related party, then there is a problem. Then in that case, the auditor needs to report it under clause number 13. So if the company is doing any related party transaction with its related party at a non-arm's length price, so which price? Non-arm's length price, then approval of audit committee required. Approval of which committee? Audit committee required, plus board of directors. Board of directors का approval भी चाहिए और audit committee का approval भी चाहिए. So if the company is doing related party transactions with its related parties, board approval is also required, audit committee approval is required. If without approval, if you are doing any related party transaction with your related party, that too at a non-arm's length price. At which price? Non-arm's length. Arm's length price में तो no problem. But if you are doing it at a non-arm's length price and you are not taken the permission of audit committee under section 177, then it is to be reported under clause number 13. So remember one thing. How to remember clause number 13? 13 is related party transaction. 3 is related party loans. This is transaction, that is loans. This is transaction, that is loan. 3 is loans. 13 is transaction, 3 is loan, 13 is transaction. So company doing related party transaction with its related party at arm's length price, no problem. Company is doing related party transaction with its related party at a non-arm's length price, audit committee approval is must. And if your company is doing related party transaction with its related party at a non-arm's length price without taking the approval of audit committee or board of directors, in that case you have to report it under clause number 13 कि भैया audit committee permission is must. Permission लेना बहुत जरूरी है. Everyone clear or not? Crystal clear? Yes sir, clear. So clause 13 are over. Now let's do the revision. What we do? Clause number 1, fixed assets. Clause number 2, inventory. Clause number 3, related party loans. Clause number 4, intercorporate loans and compliance of section number 185, 186. Clause number 5, section number 73 to 76, public deposit. Clause number 6, cost records under section 148, CRA 1. Clause number 7, payment of statutory dues. Clause number 8, repayment of borrowings. Clause number 9, end use of the raising via IPO, FPO, term loan and debentures. Clause number 10, fraud reporting. Clause number 11, managerial remuneration. Clause number 12, Nidhi company and chit fund company. Clause number 13, audit committee and related party transactions. This is how you should do the Caro 2016. ऐसा होना चाहिए, ये तुम्हारे फिंगर टिप्स के ऊपर होना चाहिए. Clear? Now let us proceed with the clause number 14. Now clause number 9 was what? Clause number 9 was कि end use of the borrowings or end use of the issue proceeds which you have raised via IPO and FPO must be genuine. Here, if you are raising the capital, if you are issuing the share capital via private placement of shares, you all know what do you mean by private placement of shares? Maximum number of subscribers must be shall not be exceeding 200. So maximum number of subscribers, maximum number of members to whom you targeted to sell your shares were maximum 200, then it is called private placement of shares. Or if you have done any preferential allotment of shares, if you have done any private placement of shares, or if you have done any preferential allotment of shares as per section number 142, you must have done it. That private placement of shares must have been complied as per section number as per section number 42. So if the company is raising the capital or money, maximum subscribers shall not be more than 200. Purpose and use of such issue proceeds via private placement of shares must be done in a which faith? In a good faith. So there end use of the borrowing via IPO, FPO in clause number 9. Here end use of the borrowing via not IPO and FPO, end use of the borrowing via private placement of shares and preferential allotment of shares, section number 1 or section number 42 has to be complied with. If you are not complying or if you are violating section number 42, then you are, as a statutory auditor, you have to report to the shareholders under clause number 14 कि company raised the money via private placement of the shares but it is not utilizing that money for the purpose for which it was raised via private placement. That is your responsibility. तो याद रखना, clause number 9 में we are raising the and we are having a concern about the end use of the issue proceeds via IPO and FPO, and here we have the raise of we have the problem about the IPO and FPO via here we have a concern relating to issue proceeds via private placement of shares or preferential allotment of shares. Everyone clear or not? Yes sir, we are clear. So here and there purpose is same, end use of the borrowing. There it is via IPO, FPO, and here it is via private placement. So what do you mean by private placement? Section number 42, maximum subscribers 200. तो अगर प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट के ऊपर क्वेश्चन आता तो इमीडिएटली योर माइंड शुड से दैट एज पर क्लॉज नंबर 14 of para 3 of Caro 2016, section number 143, subsection 11, this is what the answer. Everyone clear? Yes sir. Clause number 15, penultimate clause. Clause number 15 क्या है? Non-cash transactions with the directors. If the company is doing any non-cash transaction with the director or director is doing any non-cash transaction with the company, it's a two-way section. Company is doing the non-cash transaction with director is doing non-cash transaction with the company. Either of the two cases में section number 192 has to be complied with. Everyone clear or not? Yes. So if the company is doing any non-cash transaction with their director or the director is doing any non-cash transaction with the company, now suppose company is buying property from the director for a consideration other than cash, or director is buying property from the company for a consideration other than cash. So it should be a non-cash transaction with the director under section 192. If it is not being complied as per section number 192, then it is a responsibility of the statutory auditor to report it under clause number 15. What is the clause number 15? If the non-cash transactions were not carried out by the company as per section number 192. Either company doing a non-cash transaction with the director or director is doing the non-cash transaction with the company. I hope everyone is super clear, crystal clear. Yes sir. And clause number 16, NBFC's registration with RBI. So remember one thing, there is one section number 45IA. Section number is 45IA of RBI Act 1934. 45IA of RBI Act 1934 says that an NBFC can operate as an NBFC. What is NBFC? Non-banking finance company, only if it procures the certificate of incorporation from whom? From the RBI. So it needs to get it registered like a bank. It needs to get a license. It needs to get a certificate of registration from RBI, without which if it is operating, then it is a violation of section number 45 IA of RBI Act 1934. Then it will be reported under clause number 16. So as a non-banking finance company, you need to obtain certificate of registration from whom? From the RBI under section 45 IA of RBI Act 1934. Want to operate their business or operations or activities, you need this certificate. If you have not obtained this certificate and you are operating without obtaining certificate of registration from the RBI, then in that case you are violating that section and you are going to be reported to the shareholder under clause number 16. आपने कुछ ऑब्जर्व किया? Clause number 6 was relating to manufacturing company. Clause number 12 was relating to Nidhi and Chit Fund Company. Clause number 16 was relating to NBFC. ये जो 3 clause है, these are the 3 specific company clauses. Remaining the 13 clauses are very much non-specific. They are very much relating to general company. So we'll do one thing. एक last में practice करेंगे. Right or not? Let us practice in the last thing. Now, नेक्स्ट थिंग, द लास्ट थिंग व्हाट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड. चलो एक काम करते हैं, बिफोर मूविंग टू द पैरा नंबर 4 एक बार रिवीजन कर लेते हैं. क्लॉज नंबर 1 फिक्स्ड एसेट्स, क्लॉज नंबर 2 इन्वेंट्री, क्लॉज नंबर 3 सर रिलेटेड पार्टी लोन्स, क्लॉज नंबर 4 compliance of section number 185 186, clause number 6 public deposit sir, clause number 7 cost record section number 148, clause number 7 clause number 6 cost records, clause number 7 payment of statutory dues, clause number 8 repayment of borrowings, clause number 9 raising the issue proceeds and the loans via term loans, debentures, IPO, FPO, clause number and end use as well we have to check, and clause number 10 fraud reporting, clause number 11 managerial remuneration, clause number 12 relating to Nidhi and Chit Fund Company, clause number 13 audit committee and related party transaction, clause number 14 private placement of the shares and preferential allotment of the shares, clause number 15 non-cash transaction with the directors under section 192, and clause number 16 is NBFC's registration with RBI under section 45 IA of RBI Act 1934. Everyone clear? Yes sir, we are clear. Done? Chalo. So para number 1 was what? Date and financial year. Para number 2 was what? Applicability. And para number 3 we have done the 16 clauses. I hope those 16 clauses have gone inside your head now. It has gone inside your head now. So remember them again and again. Revise. रिवर्स में रिवाइज करते हैं. चलो एक बार रिवर्स में रिवाइज करते हैं. 16 क्या था? चलो रिवाइज करेंगे. 16 क्या था? द 16 was NBFC registration with RBI. 15 was non-cash transaction with the directors. What was 14? 14 was private placement of the shares and preferential allotment. 13 audit committee related party transaction. 12 Nidhi and Chit Fund Company. 11 managerial remuneration. 10 fraud reporting. 9 end use of the borrowings and issue proceeds via IPO, FPO. 8 repayment of borrowings. 7 payment of statutory dues. 6 cost records. 5 public deposits. 4 intercorporate means 185 and 186 wala, and third related party loans. 2 inventory. 1 fixed asset. Perfect? Yes sir, we are perfect. Right now, what is para number 4? Para number 4 is known as opinion para of the CARO 2016. Para number 4 is a opinion para of CARO 2016. It's a very simple thing, just a 2-minute discussion now. After that, our CARO 2016 topic will be over. So, auditor, if giving any unfavorable comment, if the auditor is giving any unfavorable comment, means what? Some problems are there, some violations are there, or giving any qualified opinion, then mention the reasons in this paragraph. Mention the reasons in this paragraph. If the auditor is giving any unfavorable comment or giving a qualified opinion or modified opinion, then mention the reasons in this paragraph. If the auditor is unable to express any opinion in any particular area, then he shall indicate such fact together with the reason why it is not possible for him to have given the answer to such questions or areas. So what do you mean by that? Ab sunna dhyan se. If I got the sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, and on the basis of evaluation of those evidences, I think that there is an unfavorable thing going on in the company, and I think that my opinion is qualified, then I have to mention those reasons for such qualified opinion in this paragraph. But suppose if I'm unable to express an opinion, matlab disclaimer, Unable to means what? Claiming or disclaiming. I'm unable to claim my opinion. I'm unable to express any opinion in that particular area. Then I have to mention the reasons in this paragraph ki why I was unable and what was the fact I was unable to express the reason or express the opinion on that particular area in this paragraph. Now see, auditor is unable to express an opinion in any particular area. He shall indicate such fact ki I am unable together with the reasons why it is not possible for him to give the reasons to such question or area. तो हमारी responsibility क्या है कि we have to make sure that we have to tell to the shareholders कि why it was not possible for me and what was the reason, what was the fact for that कि I was unable to express a reason, unable to express an opinion on that particular area. Everyone clear? So if I'm having an evidence, mention the reasons. If I'm not having an evidence, unable to express an opinion, mention the fact also ki why you are unable to, along with the fact that ki you have been unable to express an opinion. Uska reason bhi batao ki what is the reason you are unable to, and along with the fact that ki you are unable to express an opinion. This is called para number 4 of the Caro 2016. Okay, sir. I hope everyone is crystal clear with the Caro 2016. I hope I justified your expectation in section number 143, subsection 11. So I'll take a leave now, absorb this topic, consume this topic, and make sure that you are doing your 120% best in this particular topic of Caro 2016. So I'll see you guys in the next video with the another sections of the company audit. So company audit session, as if you are not knowing anything, so I'm going to make sure that it will be started from a scratch like this, right? So thank you so much for listening to me patiently and lending your patient ears. I'll borrow it again in your next video. Sayonara, take care, make sure that you are stay at home, stay safe, and see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.